Savvy Central Radio's official sponsor for our third annual Aviation Month is Winty Aviation T-Shirt Art. Winty is an aviation-themed t-shirt business designing and printing aviation-related graphics for pilots, aviation businesses, and aviation enthusiasts worldwide. Winty can print 1 or 100 garments upon request within a reasonably low turnaround time, including a one-stop shop solution for all your graphic art needs, from logos, business cards, book covers, and banners. Contact winty.com today in order to find out how your design can become a reality.
Get ready and start your engines for our third annual Aviation Month on Savvy Central Radio, where 8 aviation businesses share their knowledge and wisdom.
Our guest today is Mireille Goyer. As an engaged female pilot, Mireille was stunned to discover that no one had planned and celebrated the centennial of the first worldwide female pilot license in 2010. Going back to her communication roots, she launched a grassroots initiative asking pilots worldwide to fly it forward, as a salute to the first aviatrix. That initiative morphed into the Women of Aviation Worldwide Week in 2011. These initiatives are responsible for thousands of girls and women discovering aviation and flight in a small aircraft in 38 countries and 5 continents. Mireille has received national and international awards for her efforts. She is the founder of the Institute for Women of Aviation Worldwide. To find out more, go to iwoaw.org. Hi, Mireille. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
I'm fine, Christina. What about you?
I'm doing awesome, and I'm excited to have you out for our third annual Aviation Month. And girl, I love the work you're doing to bring aviation to women around the globe, and share with the audience a little bit about how you came to founding and creating Institute for Women of Aviation Worldwide.
Well, first let me tell you that it is really a privilege to be speaking with you, especially during that special month. For the Women of Aviation project, it basically started about 5 years ago, about the same time of the year, when I was searching for activities organized to celebrate the centennial of the first female pilot license worldwide. As a female pilot, I was looking forward to participating in something really cool to celebrate Raymond de la Roche's achievement. So I searched on the internet, and to my dismay, I found not one single event was planned. So to be honest, I was initially feeling pretty betrayed because I had invested all my smarts and energy into my 20 years love affair with flying. And as an industry, we don't hesitate to celebrate centennial of this and that, and rightfully so. But a women milestone, there was nothing. So after I came down from my disappointment eventually, I reflected on the fact that as a woman, I had been treated far more fairly in aviation than I was in IT. And I realized that probably the fact that we were so few was really the reason for the oversight. It just didn't register. So I basically still wanted to celebrate, and even if it was by my little self. I thought that the best way to honor the women that opened the doors for us was to fulfill their dreams, to see more women enjoy this great activity. So that's basically where I was coming from on my idea. So I created a website over the holidays, and I sent a press release with a Fly It Forward call to action. And basically I asked pilots from around the world to introduce a girl or a woman to flying in celebration, and put some titles up for grabs, like most female-friendly this and most female-friendly that, and said I was going to give trophy to people and made it a competition as an incentive. What happened next actually proved to me that the air and space industry wasn't aware, because when they heard about the upcoming centennial, they were more than happy to celebrate. So the initiative was very successful at focusing attention on a subject basically not discussed in our industry. Again, because we're so few, it's like we such a small segment that we don't make front page, and it's somewhat normal. So although it was supposed to be a one-off initiative, I realized that its impact was way too significant to be abandoned. So I launched the Women of Aviation Worldwide Week a year later to prolong the Fly It Forward initiative. Now, after 3 years, the program had become way too big for one person to handle. So that's when the Institute for Women of Aviation Worldwide was born. Well, I had some experience with founding for-profit businesses. I knew, well, basically nothing about nonprofit. So it's been quite a learning curve.
Wow. And while I'm listening to you, I can completely relate. I am not a full-fledged pilot yet. I've only flown 13, 14 hours, but my partner is a pilot, and he's a commercial pilot. I've flown with him over close to 300 or so hours. But when I was going for, to look for flight school, I was really discouraged by a lot of the flight schools to start training. They were not very helpful. I would bring my partner with me, and they would focus all their attention on my already pilot partner and not pay the least bit of attention to me. So I could totally see the need for the Institute to really bring attention and show the industry that we have a lot to offer as women.
That's right. It's a common perception, and that's what the week is all about. It's a common perception to believe that women are not interested because we are so few, and we are so few not because we're not interested. We are so few because, let's put it this way. First, we got a false start. For decades, we were actually more or less kept out from flying. In 1960, 5 decades after the first American women started flying, there were only 4,000 female pilots in the U.S. Now compare that to close to about 250,000 male pilots at the same time. So obviously we were left behind at the beginning. It's important to understand when I say kept away, it doesn't mean that there was not welcome sign at the door, although there was some of that. I'm also speaking of women's reality at the time. They were spending most of their adult life raising young children. There were no dishwasher or microwave to lighten up their workload. I mean, they were busy doing something else. So I think that was the key reason why for the first 5 decades we basically were not part of it. Now, today, you mentioned there are still actual visible barriers, but I think today a lot of those very visual barriers have mostly mostly faded away in the Western world. But they've been replaced by those less visible barriers. The type of thing you're talking about, that nobody is telling you not to come, but by some social signal you get the impression that you're not supposed to, and that's very omnipresent. And it's not really anybody's fault. It is basically a result of how we're programmed. But we have to be self-conscious of it if we want to be changing things. It is a reality that in the media, and I'm not necessarily talking about aviation media, I'm talking media in general. Usually when we talk pilot, we show a guy. It's just a reality, and that, whether we like it or not, tells women that this is not what they do. And it does affect how we perceive things. And this is much harder to break because it's not as visible, like somebody says the door is locked and you say, we need to open this door. That's very simple in a way. What we are dealing with are invisible barriers that are not so easy to address. However, once you understand that much of it is about perception, and the perception, the inadequate perception are both in male and women's mind, then it's time to come up with what we do in aviation, an antidote for this perception, and that's what Women of Aviation Worldwide Week does.
That's awesome. And I can totally relate. I've seen, as you mentioned before, both the invisible and the non-so-visible. One of my first early flights to the flight school, I was coming, because it was the train closest to the flight school. Nothing else, anyone that went to that train was pretty much going to the flight school. There was nothing in the area except for the flight school. So when I came back to the train one evening, a guy saw me waiting, and he said, "Oh, are you training to be a stewardess or flight attendant?" And I was like baffled, like, what are you talking about? Why would you go to a flight school to become a flight attendant? Because in his mind, he could not fathom that a woman was going to fly. So I laughed. I said, no, I'm studying to be a pilot. So yeah, you're right, Mireille. That does come up both visually and non-visually, that kind of cue that you shouldn't be there. What advice do you have for any women pilots out there who might be interested, or I should say maybe not pilots yet, but who want to be pilots, who feel that kind of barrier that I really shouldn't be doing this? What would you tell them?
Well, I mean, what we are doing is basically making sure that they understand that it is a perception, and that flying is for them and that they are capable. That really is what we center on during Women of Aviation Week. It's first we get their attention by saying, hey, this is something available there. But then we actually deal with the other perception, which is, well, it's what guys are good at, versus I'm a girl, I'm not good at it. This is not something I should take on because I will never succeed. And we actually show them that this is something they're actually capable of doing, and that's extremely important. That's to put them in the driver's seat. Of course, we don't have a driver's seat as pilot, but that's basically the idea. I'm just going to give you an example. One of the events last year had a large university who decided to get quite involved, and they're not a flying university. They're actually an aircraft maintenance university. So they were told, you need to involve the girl, you need to put them in the driver's seat, you need to make them understand they're capable of doing this. And they came up with this activity where the girls would rivet a little keychain. Now, riveting is not exactly something that you think the girls would fight over, but they were. And so it just shows you that they came out of this experience thinking, well, a rivet gun, no problem, I can do that. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do. There is no substitute to actually bringing them and showing them they can do this and giving them a good experience that they will hold on to when they do get that occasional reminder that maybe they shouldn't be there. And yeah. We all have those.
Yeah. And just to let the audience know, Women of Aviation Worldwide Week, the next one you have coming up is March 2nd through 8th, 2015. So everyone get ready. Any pilots who are listening in, make sure that you help out. Bring up some women friend of yours. Anyone who you might have had a passion for aviation or maybe not even realize they have a passion for aviation. Get them on over to the airport and bring them on up and let them get a hold of flying and see what it's like for themselves.
Yeah, most women will not know that they have a passion for aviation until they are being brought exposed to it and get this message that they can actually do it. I'm one of those. I think in growing up, I had in the back of my head, somehow I had some input, and obviously, and I was responding to it. I was always meant to be a pilot, in other words. Was I somebody growing up thinking I want to be a pilot when I grew up? Not at all. I knew that my financial circumstances, and these are all perceptions, right? But my financial circumstances, my medical circumstances, the fact that I was a girl, I was adding up all of that, and I knew this just wasn't something that I could do, so I never looked into it. And that's basically the average situation for most women. Even if they're meant to be a pilot, they are not going to wake up when they're 5 years old and say, I want to be a pilot. That's a very unusual case for a woman. That doesn't mean it cannot happen. I'm just saying it is not the average case for a woman. She is normally getting the message through society that this is not one of her options, and she just gets it. I mean, we all have lots of opportunities of doing lots of things. So when one of them comes across as it's just not available, you move on to the other one. It's not like any one of us is capable of doing only one thing. So when we look at all our opportunities and we have to choose, we choose something that is interesting and is feasible. We don't choose something that is not feasible. That's normal human nature. It's not reserved to women.
No, I get you. What changed it for you, Mireille? I mean, because you had said that everything that you had perceived put it outside of your realm of even thinking at the possibility. What changed it for you that you one day thought, I can do this?
Oh, I didn't think I can do it. I did it out of spite. Something happened in my life, and I was looking for. Here's what happened. I was looking for something that I would never do otherwise. And this was one of the something that I would never do, right? So I'm like, okay, then that's what I'm going to do, because that's something that I wouldn't do. And so I drove to the airport, and I was sold immediately, forever.
Wow. Well, awesome. I'm so glad you were, because you've changed so many pilots' lives, men and women around the globe. From your experience, through all you've gone through being a pilot and setting up your organization, what has been the key lesson you've learned that you could like to pass on to our listeners?
Well, the key lesson is always the one I would say that I say to event organizers every year, over and over again, as things come up, and it is normal for everyone to hesitate on going after something and doing things. And so perhaps the most important lesson that I can pass along is ask. People will prevent themselves from asking. They will tell themselves all the reason why they shouldn't ask. And the thing is, if we all go through that, but if you ask, the worst thing that can happen is you get a no. And if you get a no, you haven't lost anything because you started with nothing. So it's not a big deal. So I always say ask. And if you do get a yes, an unexpected yes, it is really a thrill, because you go, I asked and they said yes, and it's so exciting. And really, then you force yourself to ask, because as I said, most of us are reserved and tell ourselves why we shouldn't ask, right? But as you do that and you take a chance and you get this yes every so often that you didn't expect, then you realize the power of asking, and it's quite important to be able to do that.
Absolutely. I like that advice, because it recalls for me when I first started this show, I was, I had nobody listening at first. It was hard for me to get people to want to come on. But I early on asked some big hitters who were in their industry, who were pretty big in their businesses. I just took out of a whim, I just called them up and said, hey, my platform's very small, but I would like to build it. Here's what I'd like to do. Would you like to come on and share your wisdom? And in most cases, I got a yes. But like you said, if you don't ask, you don't know.
You don't know. And if they say no, well, they say no. So move it on to the next, right? At least you know. You know to move on and try something else. So, but it's when we prevent ourselves from succeeding, because basically unless we ask, we cannot progress. And if we cannot progress, we cannot succeed. That's the bottom line, and I think we tend to sabotage ourselves quite a bit. And as I said, just ask. And sometimes if you ask the wrong thing to the wrong person, you actually get yelled at, but that's okay. It's another day at the office.
That's right. Keep moving. Yeah. And I noticed from the research that you had done extensive research on how many women pilots there are out there, what are some of the deterrents on why women don't become pilots. And I was really amazed to see how many women pilots start but don't complete their private pilot certificate. Share with our audience some of the reasons this happens, and what are some of the things that could help turn this around?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think perception is a key issue. That women do not feel that they belong at the control is really prevalent, and it is a problem. I think that even those women who dare, like you and I, to disobey society's rule and go for it, still feel a bit out of place at first. I remember really sometimes feeling like, what am I doing here? I'm not supposed to be doing this. I remember specifically talking to myself like that. So unless you find yourself lucky enough to have a supportive flight instructor and a flight training environment that believes in you, then the odds are that social pressure will actually prevail, and you will eventually think that you really do not belong there, and it also might prevent you from gaining enough confidence, the confidence that you need to know that you can do it in order to solo and become a pilot. So I think that's one element. I think another big deterrent is customer service. Now, in research, it has been well established in marketing research that women do not accept poor treatment. Absolutely not. It's a deal breaker with women. And they're actually very well known to simply walk away from bad customer experiences. Now, as you know, AOPA had done a study about customer experiences in the flight training industry, and we can see where that might be keeping more women away because they're less tolerant to that kind of situation than a man would be. I also think that dealing with a certain level of isolation is not for everybody, and because women are a minority, they can make friends with men, and of course you have to if you're going to be in this industry at this time. But there is that shared experience that makes you feel understood, that because they're women, there is a not shared experience there. Obviously, men have a different upbringing, different way of approaching things, and so you just don't come from the same place. That doesn't mean that it's not. You cannot overcome that, but it still is a reality. So you cannot buddy or talk to somebody who is coming from a very different place. That could be true from if you were a foreigner coming into a country and everybody has a culture that you haven't been raised with, and you would experience the same sense of isolation. So it's just a human reality. But I also, one thing that I'm pretty much at odds personally with the industry is money. We hear about money all the time. And I personally don't think that financial challenges early in life are gender-based. I think they are cradled and luck-based, and that's it. The reality, I mean, it was different, say, in the 60s, but today more women are graduating from college than men. Indeed, more women are graduating from med school, which is not a cheap choice, than men. So they're obviously coming out with good degrees, good education, and they are now making enough money to afford aviation and learning to fly if they choose to. And I strongly believe that women do not need a handout. They only need a hand up. If a woman wants to become a pilot or anything else, I believe that she's equally capable of coming up with the funds as a man. I sure did. I wanted it, and I've made it happen. And I don't think that ability to do that is innate to men. Women are equally capable of doing that if they want something. So I think that stating otherwise is actually very patronizing, and I don't care for it on a personal level, because I'm one of these who figured it out. That's all there is to it. I wanted it, and I figured it out. And I think we all capable, all male and men and women are capable of doing that. That is not to say that some people might need some help, but again, I don't think that's gender-based. There are some people who need help. They may be men or women. I don't think it's women need more financial help than men. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I get it. I like that you mentioned that a lot, because there is that disparity that we're less capable financially, and this goes into a whole other arena. I get working in corporate for 20 years that women, well, in essence, often in the corporate world, women do make less sometimes, but that doesn't mean that we can't come to the table and do something we really care about, because I know at times when I really desire something, I've made it happen. I've gotten the money I needed for it. So to come in with the mindset, yeah, I can do this. I am a woman, but it doesn't matter what it costs. If I want it bad enough, I can find the way to make it happen.
It works for a flight lesson or a Vuitton bag, just the same.
I love that. Yeah, I want you to share with our audience a little bit of your upcoming Women of Aviation Worldwide Week. You have a 6th annual Fly It Forward Challenge, which sounds really exciting. I want you to share with the audience a little bit about what that's all about.
Well, Women of Aviation, again, is basically a perception antidote week, and it's aimed strictly at the female population. Now, the goal is basically to unite our efforts to create a loud and welcoming message that reaches well beyond airport fences, and actually reaches where women are, because they're not within the airport fences. So we need to be able to create a message that is heard way beyond that. So we encourage everyone. It's not restricted to pilots. Everyone in the air and space industry to invite girls and women to discover our industry. A key point is that size does not matter. However, girls need to be the majority. There is a reason for that. There's plenty of studies that show that in an environment where women are the minority, they will not compete with men. They will not ask questions. They will not take that driver's seat. So unless they're the majority, which doesn't mean the overwhelming majority, they will take a backseat to the whole experience, and therefore the opportunity will be missed to actually make them feel the way we want to. So the idea is to make them feel special, qualified, and welcome. As you mentioned, the week is celebrated during the week of March 8th. There is an important reason for that as well. March 8th is actually the anniversary date of the first female pilot license worldwide. And fortunately, March 8th became International Women's Day about 4 years after that accomplishment. So it works out very well. That's why we celebrate during that week. It's already a week that focuses on women empowerment. So the fact that it actually concurs with a very important milestone for women in the aviation industry, it works out very well, and that's why it happened this week. I know the weather is not always nice. I've heard it 10,000 times, but it is when it is. So every year we have a theme to celebrate major women milestone, and as you mentioned, in 2015, so next year, we are going to be celebrating 100 years of female pilots in combat. So to do that in a meaningful way, we thought that we would encourage any participating pilot, which we call Fly It Forward pilots, to give a flight introduction to non-flying female military personnel and their daughters. The reason we're going to do that is to thank them for their service, obviously, and it's a way to salute all the women who have served. But it's also a way to encourage them to consider aviation for their civilian life. Now, obviously, military women do know a lot about operating in a male-dominated environment. So that aspect of choosing aviation will not be a deterrent. And I think it's such a wonderful activity that, and it's usually a well-paying activity for maybe many of the job opportunities that there are in aviation. I think it would be nice for them to be encouraged to take a look at us. I know they get a lot of opportunities, but that's the way to do it, to present that to them. So that's basically what we're going to do, and also our keynote program is going to really feature great women of military aviation. I can't reveal the names yet. I know you don't like to hear that, but we have a great lineup plan. It's really going to be great, and we make it possible for girls and women around the world to interact with these ladies via the internet free of charge. So it's not a upscale keynote program behind some closed door that you pay a high price to come in. It is really bringing it to everyone.
Well, I'm so grateful. Thank you, Mireille. And everyone, please go to womenofaviationweek.org and stay tuned and get ready for March 2nd through 8th, 2015 for the next Women of Aviation Worldwide Week. And I have to tell you, Mireille, thank you so much for coming to Savvy Central Radio and sharing your wisdom and this wonderful cause that you're working to help all women get into the aviation world.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to tell your listener about it.
For your chance to win an official Savvy Central Radio 3rd Annual Aviation Month t-shirt, like our page at facebook.com/Savvy Central Radio. For those interested in joining our Savvy family or being a paid sponsor or interviewing with us, contact us at savvycentralradio@gmail.com or 718-713-2289. And remember, we want to host the programming you're interested in. If you have a guest you'd like to hear on Savvy or a topic you'd like us to cover, please let us know.